Hello everyone, and thank you for joining my today's session. I'm excited to be here and happy to share with you our case study around how to implement security development lifecycle into the Agile process. So, let's begin. So, coming to speak about security development lifecycle in Agile, some may think that this is a mission impossible. There are few misconceptions around the security development lifecycle in Agile, such, for example, that phasing take too much time, and since the Agile process is in a fast pack, and you need to ship the release in a very fast pack, you don't have enough time to implement all your security controls. Also, some other misconception about the adaptive way that Agile approach is about may limit you by implementing the right security controls. Here is an example of a very familiar vendor that published in his website what he thinks about security development lifecycle, and I'm sure that this vendor is used in many companies that are developing in the day-to-day. So it says, it is well known and acknowledged fact that Agile processes are extremely difficult to combine with any existing security frameworks. And when you keep reading on the blog, you find this additional sentence that say, the good news is that our retroactive security is very good. So on my today's presentation, I hope I'm sure that I'm going to prove you that security development lifecycle in Agile is more than doable. I will present and share with you our practice of how we did this. This is not the only way to do this. There are a lot of flavor of how to do this. It works for us, and I hope you will benefit from it and inspire to use it for your own SDLC program at home. Few things about myself, few details. I'm in the industry for more than 20 years. In the last 4 years, I'm focused on building the SDLC program at LivePerson. In the past, I used to design a large network and implement security within it. Feel free to contact me to the details that are shown in the slide. To give you some color about what is security for LivePerson, let's first understand who we are and what we do. So LivePerson is a SaaS platform that creates meaningful connections through a real-time engagement. We are in the industry 16 years. We are SaaS from the first day. We are public. We have a lot of customers in different verticals, and we will elaborate on this a bit. And we have 800 employees. When I came to LivePerson 4 years ago, we were about 200 employees and grew up to 800 employees, which is a challenge by itself in terms of governance and how you manage your SDLC program in general. So, how the solution works. We monitor our visitor on our customer website, and since we monitor all this traffic, we managed to see 1.5 billion unique visitors coming to our customer websites. So it's a lot of traffic, a lot of performance issue that is hitting our data centers. At the right moment, we choose the right visitor to engage with and offer him the right channel to engage with. Could be voice, chat, video, or any coupons or other channels that are available on our platform. Meaning that the right moment, the real time, and performance are big issue for the service itself in order to be efficient and give our customer the right value. Each month we interact with more than 10 million different visitors by chat, and all these chats are stored on our data centers. And for a security guy that needs to deal with this type of information, this is really a challenge. Our customers are coming from different verticals, can come from a big finance institute, and we have also telco, we have health companies and others, and we operate globally. We have many customers in the US, in Europe, and now we are fast growing on APAC. This is a real challenging when we are speaking about compliances. Our customer needs to stay compliant. If you are speaking about big financial institute, they have keep updating regulation coming from the OCC, other regulation that they need to meet for internal use and for the regulator itself. And dealing with all this, if we will not provide the right security controls, we will not manage to do business. So this understanding means that security is not optional for a live person. Security is part of our DNA. By understanding this, the outline of this one is that the decision making on our company understand this very well. And this helps us a lot in order to drive our security development lifecycle, and we get the right support from our management to do so. Creating the value to your management and to your decision making will help you drive your security development lifecycle in the right path for your own service. The first thing you need to know before you even start to implement your security development lifecycle is like you do in your Agile process. First, you go to a discovery phase. The first discovery phase that you need to do is to understand how you're operating in terms of the different entities in your organization, deciphering well the flows that are in your organization. Here are the key players that take part in live person. This is a high level. I'm sure that everybody can adjust to his own organization. We have the sales and product that hear the customer needs, that hear the market needs, and they formulate it and compile it into user stories that comes into the different Scrum teams. Sometimes the user story are easy to understand, and we can match the user story directly to the relevant Scrum teams, but sometimes the user stories are more complicated, and we need first to understand and find out to which relevant Scrum teams it needs to fall into. So to do so, we have the software architect and the system architect to support the product, to identify and to break to small chunks of the user story and create new user story for each Scrum. Live person includes today 22 Scrum teams and about 200 developers in R&D. Each Scrum team, of course, includes members such as Scrum Master, product owner, QA, and developers teams. When you speak about this flow, you understand that It's right. Agile, it's about adaptive approach of how you develop your things. But it's not a chaos. You work in an environment that it's a stable framework that allows the different Scrum to add more of the same to this infrastructure. From time to time, you need to establish new API or new connection or interaction between the different subsystems. And for this, you will need guidance and assistance from the software architect and from the system architect. You cannot, as a Scrum, decide that you want to go with a new type of database, and today we have so many flavors. If we are speaking about big data, you can have Cassandra, you can have Hadoop, others use MongoDB, and you can find yourself putting a lot of friction into the system. So it's not a chaos. We have our software architect and we have our system architect that decide together what is the best approach to address new interaction between the different subsystems. After everybody is happy and knows what needs to be done, the developer sits to create the relevant code and start to push it into the infrastructure. Meaning, today we have more than 100 different builds, unique builds that comes into our continuous integration environment. And from this continuous integration environment, automatically are pushed to the Artifactory and set the right artifact. And from there, in an automated way, we push it to production and finally find our happy customer use the new user story. After we cover a bit about how flows are going, and I didn't forget the security team in this slide, because the security team, and this is part of the message that I'm bringing, should be in each part of the process. You cannot put security team above, you cannot put security team under, after, before. It should be part of the process, and you need to be present. You don't need to be present in person, but you need to be present in all the part of the process during the build itself. So after we cover a bit about the flows, let's see how Scrum acts. So this is nothing new. This is a standard slide of Agile. You have the product backlog that we spoke about. Come into the Spring backlog, you choose your user stories that needs to be provided in the coming release, and in a period of between 2 to 4 weeks, you have daily meetings of the team, taking the relevant task for being in this specific day, and monitoring what was covered and see that they are on the right path to ship the release on time. Of course, once this process ends, there is an evaluation, and if something is missing, it goes back to the Spring backlog for the next release. Into this process, we decided internally to find out what are the checkpoints that needs to be addressed during this sprint process. And we attach for each checkpoint the right control. So at the phase of the release planning, we start with security high-level design. Security high-level design, it's about identify the risk. And the risk is not just the standard risk that most of you probably aware of, such as input validation, the right session management, and I assume that if I will ask how you need to store your password in the database, everybody will know, and if not, it will find out in Google's in a few seconds that needs to be hashed, like with addressing the NIST standard, etc., etc. The thing is more take a high-level understanding of what is your solution, what is the flow, what is the right manner to create API. Is it a stateless protocol or is it a session protocol? Are you going to interact with third parties? Are you going to expose OpenID or going to share a SAML on your application? All of this needs to be good, have a good understanding of what you are going to do in this specific user story. In addition, you need to understand a compliance issue. And let me give you an example. You want to get benefit from geolocation solution, okay? But then you have customer sitting in Europe saying, you cannot transfer our data out from Europe for data at rest. So here you have a problem. You cannot go with geolocation and start spreading the data and affecting our customer compliance. This is an issue that could cause you loss of customer. And if you don't identify it at first before you even start to develop, you will be in a deep problem with your customer. Of course, user experience usually done by the UI UX people. But again, now you are developing security control. You want it to be consumed by your customers in an easy way. So you need to decide, are you task-driven in your application, meaning you are now going to create an operator, so I will pop up the user and password complexity for my customer at the right point when he got to this process. And this is also thinking about the business, thinking about how you need to do things in the right way. So high-level design, don't stay at the standard things like input validation and other stuff. You need to see the big picture, the business picture, the compliance issue, the web application or application security. The next phase will be the sprint planning. After everybody understands what needs to be solved, we go to do some discovery phase. We start to define how we are going to address the needs, and we will do so during this process. The developer will find themselves with some concerns or constraints that we put at first, and will need to have some type of guidance of how to do things right. My message here is build strong relationship with your R&D and make yourself available at any time to help them understand. And when I'm speaking about a good relationship, it don't start at the sprint planning. It starts when you train them, when you do some demos to your developers and create awareness. This awareness will be a self-starter for the developers to start asking questions when they are designing the solution. And this is a very important step in the process. The next one is when you come to do actually the work. Okay, everybody knows what needs to be done. We spoke about it. We did a lot of meetings. Now it's the money time. Let's start work. And the developers is asked to do, for example, input validation, which I will take this example through my presentation. And during this input validation, we forced him to use ISAPI, for example, as a framework. Building this as from scratch each time, if someone already in the past did it, he knows that it creates some friction. You need to set the right properties to ISAPI, to define your regex each time, and not each developer is very trained with this one. And when you have a so dynamic a company that more and more developers are coming to your company, it's hard to keep the level of knowledge for all the developers. And this is something that I'm sure that everybody is facing in terms of how you keep your knowledge in the organization. So what we did is actually we compiled a set of utilities that can be easily consumed by the developers in a way that will create less friction and will be good from the perspective of time consuming. After we set our policy into this set of utilities, we want to enforce it. We set the policy, now we want to see that everybody is working according to the policy that we set in place. And in order to do so, we use different tools, such as static code analysis. We use static code analysis with a predefined heuristic that verify that each input in the system uses only the utility that we provide. Meaning if some developer decided to build his own input validation, putting his own regex, maybe the best regex ever, but it's not the policy of the company, it will fail on the test. And why do we do so? Because we want to be able to control and unify the solution that we bring in the system in a manner that will be easy to maintain and easy to change when needed. Other aspects of this is when you create a project, you usually use open source. You create dependencies to your project, and by fetching this, you may impact your security policy. And this could be in few channels. We will speak about it in a few. Once we are happy with the code, we checked in the build success. We run automated security test during these 2 steps. And during these steps, we actually have a better visibility on the product and what is about to be released. At the end, we have a release and we have an external pen test. Some of you may say, okay, external pen test is an expensive, it's a long phase, it's a kind of problematic. So we run our external penetration test, but we want also to collaborate with our customers, and we are open for penetration tests coming from our customers. They do it for their reason to remain compliant with their internal process, and by this we gain 2 things. One is transparency. We show our customer that we don't have any problem for them to run penetration tests on our service, and the other one is to improve ourselves. And by doing this, we gain our customer confidence. And just to give you an idea and numbers, we run about 40 different penetration tests a year coming from our customers, meaning that we manage more than 2 penetration tests monthly. And it's a lot. And if we are looking in a time frame of an agile process, we are speaking about 4 weeks. So in 4 weeks, I'm always on the run of some sort of a penetration test. After we understand what are the controls, let's dive into the coding and understand better what needs to be done. So when we speak about code, usually we will think about the code that the developer puts into the code. But it's not only the code that the developers puts in it, and we spoke about it a few seconds ago about the utilities that we provide, anti-SAMI, CSRF guard, all these frameworks that are provided to us by OWASP or by internal development, and we spoke about the controls that we can apply to it. But then again, you need to consume some dependencies and open sources into your code, which increase the amount of line of code that each product contains. Our product, when I'm speaking about line of code, so line of code that are puts from our developers can be from small subsystem of about 30K line of code up to more than 1 million line of code. When you add to this the line of codes coming from the open source, you increase the number of line of code, and of course you increase your vulnerability. So what we do is, for each build, we also inspect the code which open source are consumed, and we look about what are the open sources, what license they run, to see that they are aligned with our legal framework. We see if we use new open source in the system and get alert about the software architect, and we also inspect it for vulnerabilities. Some of the open source that you import to your code may contain well-known CVEs that you will never test it on a regular path of QA. So this will help you create more visibility about what is your code. But then it doesn't end there. You have also the delivered. And delivered, I'm saying about, let's assume you are using Apache Tomcat. And you have some function, foo, A and B, calls this foo, and this foo is actually on the Tomcat, on a specific module that you enabled. So you cannot see it not on your open source, and you cannot see it on your static code analysis. It's somewhere there on the delivery. So at this point, what we do is at the final artifact that we provide, we scan it with Nessus to identify what modules were enabled on this specific project, and if they are vulnerable to some sort of setting or well-known CVEs or other thing. This way you can screen your code in multi-dimensional view, seeing the codes coming in, the dependency you bring in, and on what platform you are actually running. After we understand how we do this, let's focus on the code that the developers are using and see how we expose the API what is the practice to expose it. So here is a slide that is from the OWASP, of course, and this slide describes how eSAPI is exposing their API. They are a validator, encryptor, you can do randomize, or other stuff that are used in your code. But as I mentioned before, using it from scratch will require an effort from your team each time they want to use it. The other thing that will concern you is where to put your validation. And this is not an easy decision. And I'm telling this because we have a lot of test and fail until we decided what is the right approach. So for us, we decided the better solution will be to do a validation on the business function, meaning for each input at the maximum resolution. And why do we do so? We do so for a few reasons, and these are tips that we learn from. First of all, to keep the regex and the input validation as simple as possible to prevent any performance issue that may impact your functionality on your server. The second thing is, when you need to fix something, you don't need to fix and be in a situation that you might break other things. By doing this, you will be able to apply a specific validation, a new specific validation. There are other tools when validation is not applicable. You can do also encoding. And now, after you understand what needs to be done, you need to enforce this policy, because this is well known for most of the developers, that input validation needs to be done, etc., etc. But now you want to expose it in a fashion that will help your developer consume it easy, in an easy way, and to actually enforce the policy. So this is an example of how you do this. We created a generic, let me see, a generic function, a generic class that will actually deal with any input validation. We use null to return to the specific calling for this class, and why null? Let me give you another tip. If you will use Boolean at this step, you might find yourself dealing with this Boolean in a wrong manner when it returns to the code, and by doing this you can continue with the vulnerable value on your code. By returning null, you will avoid any returning bad information or malicious information to the continuous of the flow. The second part is what actually the developer sees. The developer needs to do only get valid string and will need to call the relevant specific validator that he wants to consume. By doing this, he will actually, he don't know what happened behind the scenes. He just know that if he use it right, he just call this get valid string, put the right validator, and he's supposed to be safe on this one. In addition to each validator that we apply also a unit test, because when you work in Agile, sometimes there is a disorder on delivery of the different subsystems. So you cannot run an end-to-end test. And this is a problem that a lot of Agile projects facing. We provide a unit test that will help you to measure your performance and to see, you fetch the expected input and put it on a valid value, as you can see here, and invalid value test. So we run two tests, one for the valid and one for the invalid, and verify that the system works correctly and not fail you. And this happens for each build. When coming to summarize the big picture, we create a live person security API. We import it, we force to import it for each project. We enforced our policy by using static code analysis and open source validation and the delivered validation for each building block that it's supplied. Finally, when we finalize to write our code, we want to do a check-in. So we use the continuous integration infrastructure to enable us to create builds. And we do this by the developer checking the code. He push the code into the subversion. Once the subversion identifies the new code, it triggers the TeamCity. We use TeamCity as our CI solution. It triggers the TeamCity, and the Maven process start to create your build. Into this build, we just push our security components, meaning we do static code analysis, dynamic test, and open source, and like any other system test that runs into the continuous integration environment, if you will fail, and this is a critical issue, if you will fail, and fail means that we identified any high or medium finding, you will fail the build. So think about it like a developer trying to run his code in his own machine. If he cannot compile it, he will not be able to run it, right? So think about it the same way. If you have security finding, you cannot continue. You need to fix them down, and to fix them now, and don't postpone it and create a backlog. So this way, you will find yourself coming clean each time you push, and of course, clean in a manner of what you know. There is always other steps, but if you know about something, fix it now. Don't wait for find it later on the process or put it on the backlog. Another thing is, as we mentioned, when we think about our customer business and how the task is driven, think about your developer as a customer, okay? You want to give him a good user experience when facing problem with security. So he's used to checking his code and find and monitor the success or failure of the build in the framework of the Team City. Into this framework, we just added a new tab, as you can see here, that shows him what went wrong on his build. And if the build fails, he can easily go and see within the tool itself exactly what line went wrong and get assistance online and get help online to help him remediate the vulnerability that was just found. This way you win twice. Once, you increase the awareness of your developer. Each time you find a new finding that he creates, he gets well familiar with this finding, he needs to deal with it. He creates self-knowledge to himself, and by this he's improving. Second, you have a sustainable security level of knowledge for all your organization, because this is a standard. You cannot pass this standard. You need to meet this standard, and by doing this, you are actually good to go. Let's summarize what we saw until now, and I will leave a few minutes for questions. So, as we spoke at the beginning, the first thing is to do discovery and identify the right intersection that you need to be involved in order to be efficient in your security lifecycle and security development lifecycle. And the message here is be part of the process. Don't wait to be at the end of the process. Be involved in each checkpoint. Decide with your R&D which are the good points that will create the maximum impact on the decision before it happens. And once you become part of the process, it becomes part of the DNA of your R&D, and it's not strange to them. It's not the bad guy that comes with a hat and say, you did this, you did that. The developers, it's a self-consuming. He goes to the panel, he sees the problem, he gets online help, he resolves the problem. If he needs guidance, he calls you. You are always present in his life cycle. Second is reduce friction. You want to reduce friction by setting and consuming your solution and your policy in an easy manner. So put a package, put a set of utilities to be consumed by your developers in a way that will not have to be so heavy process, to be a very simple consuming, like we saw in the input validation. We do so also for encryption, for anti-SAMI. If someone already deployed anti-SAMI, he knows how friction it is to define the XML file that creates the policy, so on and so on. And by doing this, you reduce the amount of knowledge that the developer needs to do in order to achieve his task. Screen and enforce your policy on what needs to be done. We created a policy, we published it to everybody, now we need to enforce it. We enforce it by putting, and this brings me to the next point, using automation and collaboration between the different systems. You have a CI environment, you have static code analysis, interact between them, create automation, understand the process you want to put in place, and once you understand the process, build it into an automated way. The next item is to create confidence with your customer. Don't be afraid. Don't set security by obscurity. Be open. If you have a problem, you want to know about it. You don't want to hide it. You want to let others test you and feel confident with the service. If you don't do this, you will be hard to do business with a large enterprise organization. If you are a SaaS provider, you for sure know that when it comes to do business, you get to a point where the security teams is involved and start asking questions. What is your data retention policy? How do you deal with PII? And then if there are findings, you cannot go live with this customer. The second part of the recommendation are more about how you treat your R&D organization. So we at LivePerson coach and coach champions. You have Scrum Masters, we have tech leaders. We take them on hands-on training and creating value to them to understand what is the security problem that can be pop up during their session. We share, of course, a lot of information and train our developers on a regular basis. In addition, we create a knowledge base, and the knowledge base is not just around about our service. For example, the last incident of Adobe, where they lost more than 153 million records of emails and user passwords, and the security question in clear text. So once a developer sees this, he reads about it. When he comes to do some sort of a thing, he's aware. The next thing is, and it needs to come with your management decision, to break the build in a high or medium. To approach this step, you will need to feel mature enough to do so, because if you don't, you will create noise, and this noise in R&D will not impact well your day-to-day work, and will create a lot of tension between the different parties on your company, the ones that wants to ship the release on time, and the one that will needs to go and fix it again, etc., etc. So you need to feel confidence, reduce the false positive in the process. In order to do so, what I recommend is to start small but think big. What does it mean? Start with a small project. Don't start with annoying everybody in R&D. When you start to do so, you will understand better what are the roadblocks that can face you during this process. Make this a success story and start to convince the other teams to join this program. Step by step, you can see how it grows, and believe me, it wasn't started at the beginning to do so, but once it actually created a success, teams wanted to join this program and wanted to be part of this process, and today this process goes for all the subsystems we have at the company. And of course, it's a never-ending story. You need to feed this program all the time to make it alive. Things are getting better. You have new product that can help you achieve the solution. I'm open to question. Of course, if you will not cover the question, you can ask me during this. I will be available.
Hi, great presentation. Thank you. You said you had 22 Agile teams running. What are the ratio of the security people to that, and what roles do they play on those teams?
So it's a very good question. We have 22 scrums with 200 developers, and we are 5 people on the security team. But we have also operational security guys, about 3 guys, and we also mentor the software architect and others to be part of it. So actually we collaborate with all together because we cannot get to 200, but we are in a very good relation with all of them.
With the security tools, the scanning tools like the HP Fortify, it's taking longer and longer with more and more rules as they're coming out to scan even medium-sized Java projects. It can take 3 to 5 hours. How are you, are you whittling down or creating a small policy for quick turnarounds in your builds to be able to accommodate Agile projects? How are you addressing some of that?
Great question. Of course, at the beginning, we start with each build, meaning each build that was checked in, we will check it. So for large project, it becomes a problem because people want to get their artifact as soon as they checked in, and they don't want to wait more than 5 to 10 minutes. So we addressed it in a nightly build, meaning you can check in during the day, no problem. At night, you will run a nightly build for a large project, and then if you fail, you cannot continue your work. So actually, every build is scanned at a time framework of 24 hours. For small project, every time that you checked in.
So one of the things people in my company were concerned about, they said, okay, during these scrums and sprints, suppose somebody changes a design. Suppose they decide a different protocol, it's a different way to do stuff. How do you find out about that? You just rely on their awareness that that's important? Is there an artifact they create that you can check? How do you catch decisions that are security impacting in the middle of their process?
So it's about awareness of the teams approaching you with the question and find it during the sprint planning. But if your subsystem needs to speak with another subsystem, you cannot create this established connection if you don't go to the software architect. And we are very tied to the software architect. We work in very close mode with the software architect, so any change coming from this path, we will be involved. There is no slip away on this one.
But that's because they're aware of it, right? There's no document that they make a check mark in that you see there's been a change. It's just those people are aware of what's important to you and they go to you.
Sure.
Okay.
And there is no way that I will not speak 2 or 3 times a day to a software architect during the day.
Any more questions?
There.
Oh.
When you let customers test and pen testing, do you have any restrictions, like they can't try denial of service?
Of course, the test should not be intrusive, and no load test.
Right.
All your customers, they know what non-intrusive means.
It's a legal act. They sign on a document before they start the pen test. Okay.
Sorry, could you just explain a bit more about how you got management buy-in? Because you said that was quite important at the beginning, and obviously it must be very important to get everybody to do this. I was kind of curious how you got that.
Sure. I think because of our nature of the service, we work with big finance institute. Most of the bank in the US are customers of ours. So you follow a very long security questionnaire and audit before you start your service. Once you go to this type of engagement with this type of customer, you quickly understand that if you don't have security, you cannot do business. This is the alignment. It's business talking here. You know, if you don't do security, no business.
How do you deal with false positives, especially in the nightly builds where you break the bill and then realize it was a false positive?
False positive, so we serve our developers, and this is priority for my team. Meaning, soon as there is an issue, a direct call to one of my team or to me will immediately get a response. We look into it, we resolve the issue, we understand. If we have a false positive and it cannot continue, there is time going to waste from the developers. So we are aware as a security team to the R&D needs. So I think in terms of time, I'm done, or do we have? Thank you.